This is an episode that's particularly interesting because of the fact that it really feels like a side quest. At the start of the episode, we have various Federation personnel talking to Captain Picard about how they need him to take a Tam Elbren to find this thing called Tin Man. Well, codename Tin Man anyway. Its real name is Gomtuu, but, we find that out later. And that's the entirety of the episode, is you see a few characters at the beginning, Captain Darson, Captain DeSoto, and a few of the other ships, and then we leave them behind. They're only in the opening scene. Now, the interesting thing with this one is that we have a obvious insert for a GM-controlled NPC that is a mission essential NPC. If he dies, the mission fails. You know, that sort of thing. They didn't actually go too hard on that particular aspect of things, but that is one of those things where if the mission had gone catastrophically wrong, and Tam Elbren had died, hey, different ending. So, Tam Elbren is a pure Betazoid and has incredibly powerful telepathic abilities by Betazoid standards. So he could read the mind of anyone he is near, which has a range of several kilometers, since he's able to read the minds of Romulans who are actually just flying past the Enterprise. Yeah, that's a fun ability. Again, though, this is one of those things where it's like, would you give a player this sort of thing? No. But an NPC who's a GM-controlled quest NPC, sure, why not? Now, the interesting thing with this one is the conflict of this one is actually primarily about trying to figure out what Tin Man is. Because it's seemingly this living thing, but it's also huge. And acting like a spaceship, to be quite honest. And, they want the Enterprise to go to Beta Stromgren and look at it. Now, the danger to the crew of the Enterprise. One, we know that Beta Stromgren is going to go Nova soon. And some speculation that this is why Tin Man is there, is that it wants to get exploded when Beta Stromgren goes Nova. Is that actually true? Well, kind of, sort of, somewhat. And you also have Romulans who somehow have found out about it. Actually, that's an interesting point. How close is this to the Romulan neutral zone? This could be one of those like, oh, hey, it's Romulans because we're near Romulan space. Because, of course, we are. 23 parsecs beyond the Federation's furthest manned explorations. Oh, it is technically Romulan space. So the Enterprise, as part of this mission, actually violated the Romulan neutral zone. Anyways, though, there are 2 Romulan ships to dispatch, one of which gets destroyed by Gomtuu, and the other one, presumably lives. Presumably. Because they don't actually talk about it in the ending of the episode. They show it getting knocked out of the system by Gomtuu, but we don't see what happened to it. Anyways, though. So, doing this as a TTRPG module, well, that's the part about this that's interesting, is that most of what we have for this is kind of sort of plays out like a choose-your-own-adventure novel, with the various people in the crew of the USS Enterprise making decisions about how to proceed in the mission. And we find out that Tam Elbrun, has contact with weird alien entities as kind of sort of his specialty because of just how powerful his telepathy is. He can read the minds of people who are not in the same room as him and do so quite clearly. But he also kind of sort of doesn't like being in heavily populated areas because it's annoying to him to be literally listening to the minds of a million people all at the same time. It's unpleasant. So Tam Elbrun likes to do things that are way out in the deep depths of space where there's less people to listen to. Anyway, though, one of the interesting things with this episode is that you actually have a time when the Enterprise gets fired on that's actually a non-combat scenario. See, the D'Deridex that fires on the Enterprise is actually doing so to distract them and let the D'Deridex get to Gomtuu before the Enterprise does. Why the Romulans are so eager, that's actually something that's a bit strange. See, because, like, the second Romulan commander does the whole, like, right to vengeance thing. And it's like, we're going to destroy the alien because it destroyed the other warbird. It's like, wait, but, so why did the other warbird attack Gomtuu? Also, this sounds kind of like a very Klingon thing, to be quite honest. The way the Romulans are written in this episode feels more Klingon than Romulan. I'm not sure if this is one of those things where the people originally writing the script wrote Klingons as their original idea, but right to vengeance doesn't feel like the Romulan way of doing things. Anyways, it's what you could do with this in a TTRPG though is that it doesn't need to be Romulans or Klingons. You could throw in some other alien race as a substitute, because again, is that when you're making things like this into TTRPG modules, you can either play it out as having your party attempt to live out the episode in a what would you do sort of way and see how their reactions to the things that happen in the episode might change the outcome of the story and so on and so forth. Or you could just use it as inspiration for making something else. And this is one where you could do either one reasonably well. Because the episode as is that you make some choices, like go to the thing, try to figure out how to talk to Gomtuu, avoid having the Romulans blow you up because Romulans doing Romulan things for presumably Romulan reasons. I'm not even sure about the Romulan reasons part, as I mentioned earlier. At any rate, though. Yeah, the whole like idea of the Romulan ship being improperly cloaked because of the fact that they're pushing their engines so hard that the cloak is malfunctioning. Yeah, yeah. That's a fun plot point. Honestly, writing cloaked vessels in TTRPGs, I would always put in some sort of tell that it's there. Making cloaking perfect is sometimes useful for plot reasons, and when you're doing it for plot reasons, you don't necessarily need to explain that the cloak was completely imperceptible. Just say that the people didn't actually perceive it. Because again, it's like different situations with cloaks will have different reasons for them being detected. And in this one, the cloak just wasn't working right. Sometimes they'll have like environmental effects being there. Because like when you look at the Beta Stromgren system, it's not a fully stable star. It's about to go nova, and it does go nova. So you could have some sort of energy emissions from the star cause cloaks to not work in the system because of how much energy is being outputted by the star. So it hits the ship, and you get an outline of the ship, even if you can't see the ship. Anyway, though, as for Gomtuu itself, this is an interesting one because of the fact that as it works out in the episode, we find out several things about Gomtuu that make you question history. Because this is one of those big ancient aliens things where it's ancient aliens from the Star Trek perspective, where it's a race that used to exist in massive numbers until it didn't. And the explanation of why the race is no longer existing in massive numbers is hard to understand. And also, Gomtuu is very vague about where it came from. The reason why we've never heard of its creators before could be that it's the only one of its kind to have ever entered Federation space, and that, well, it might actually be from a different galaxy for all we know. Anyways, though, it was able to create an interior environment that Betazoids would find comfortable. It was able to rearrange its internal structure at will, seemingly. Granted, this is one of those things where presumably limits exist. However, what those limits are, the episode didn't go into. It just showed it doing a few things. Oh, one thing we do know, other than this whole like energy wave trick that it does twice, is that it does have the ability to imitate transporter effects, because it did beam data back to the Enterprise. Data was not beamed back to the Enterprise by the crew of the Enterprise. It was beamed back to the Enterprise by Gomtuu. So that's something useful to remember. Yeah, so two different categories of powerful energy-based abilities. Also, it does presumably have the ability to travel at warp speeds. What speed that is, we don't really know. But, you know, it's the basic idea anyways. And, oh, also is that Gomtuu is a telepathic entity. Exactly how much it really understands about humanoids, we don't really know. However, after Tam Elbrun bonds to it, it's like, ah, yes, hello, person I like to talk to. Now, some sort of explosion in space killed the crew of Gomtuu. Oh, actually, this is another one that's interesting, is because the fact that Gomtuu is an organic entity and predates the Undine. Well, or species 8472, as they're more commonly known in the actual TV show itself. The specific abilities of this, from the perspective of Voyager, actually aren't that impressive. However, from TNG perspective, a living starship was something mind-blowing to the Federation. And it was something that in Voyager was like, oh, we found a race of people that do entirely living starships. That's new. Yeah. Anyways. So, we don't actually know what Gomtuu's crew was. The episode mentions that Gomtuu was suicidal because of the fact that its crew was dead. And when it found the Beta Stromgren and realized that Beta Stromgren was going to go nova, it decided that it wanted to get exploded by Beta Stromgren because it was that depressed and lonely. And it's like, wait, why can't you just go back to wherever you came from? That's an interesting question. Also, at no point in the episode does Gomtuu use the communication methods that the Federation considers traditional, which suggests that the ship, in the culture that created it, used telepathic communication as the norm. Again, much like the Undine, who used telepathic broadcasts to talk to people on other ships and don't hail you. Um, this also mentions that something or other about there being a near extinction of its race. We don't know what that was. Although, there is something that occurs to me that is one of those connect the dots things that is highly suspect, but again, you're making up fan theories for things to put into your TTRPG. This is something that you could work with. It could be from Andromeda. Why? Well, what do we know about Andromeda in Star Trek? Well, very little, other than the fact that there are sentient life forms there. These sentient life forms are very different than the humanoids in the Milky Way galaxy because Andromeda was not seeded the same way the Milky Way galaxy was, to have mostly humanoids. So, Andromeda's life forms are strange by Federation standards. Also, there's some kind of cosmic anomaly in the Andromeda galaxy that is causing the galaxy to be dangerous to certain forms of life, and it's not known what the cause of this event is, but it is stated to involve radiation and the galaxy being irradiated by something. So that kind of sort of fits in with this, is that this particular radiation event in the Andromeda galaxy might have killed off most of Gomtuu's race, and then Gomtuu fled to the Milky Way galaxy, uh, hoping to be, safe or whatever, or just get away from whatever killed its crew. And then it got depressed and lonely. Also, this actually would make it so that Gomtuu's arrival in the Milky Way galaxy might be relatively recent. Because it's like the Federations and the Romulan Star Empire sent people to investigate Gomtuu's presence as soon as they detected it there. And they detected it about the same time. So it's possible that they detected Gomtuu at Beta Stromgren as soon as Gomtuu arrived. Again, though, this is all just a fan theory. Use it as you will if you do. Anyways, that particular aspect of this is an interesting one, though, because we don't really know why the Andromeda galaxy is like that. But we do know that there has been more than one alien race come from Andromeda to the Milky Way galaxy because of that. Secondary canon sources have made their own ideas as to what caused that, but I don't need to go into those. Anyway, so that's about it. Because, the other thing with this is that Gomtuu is the quest goal, but you don't get Gomtuu. No, it's like Tim Elbrun gets on Gomtuu and then Gomtuu leaves. And presumably, Tim Elbrun is going to look into the existence of Gomtuu and the hows and whys and all that stuff about the civilization that created Gomtuu, or I'm not sure created is even the right word for this. We don't know enough about Gomtuu to actually know if it was truly an artificial thing or if it was some sort of space-based life form that got modified to be a starship. Again, How was it created? We don't know. One of those things where the plot demands that certain entities exist, but the plot does not require explanations of how those entities exist. And thus, we are left wondering because we have a lot of questions now. And attempting to answer questions like that are actually something really fun for TTRPGs. Having your own take on, well, this is what I think is probably what happened. That is a lot of fun. At any rate, I think that's enough pondering this one for now. There's a lot of fun you could have with this, or something similar as a one-off, because again, it's that we don't know beyond a shadow of a doubt that Gomtuu was, in fact, the last of its kind. You might find a different one with a slightly different personality and different goals in a different location in the Milky Way galaxy, or maybe not in the Milky Way galaxy if you're really, really feeling froggy with it. But anyway, that's my thoughts on this. Let me know in the comments what you think about it. See you next time.